We're putting these 9 flagship phones head-to-head in this epic battle royale to see which one is the best portrait shooter in the world. And to make things extra exciting, we're bringing in our professional full-frame camera as our ultimate reference point. We'll cover 3 key scenarios: studio shots, daytime portraits, and challenging low-light portraits. For each round, we'll shoot with classic portrait lengths 50, 85, and 120 millimeters. Alright, we know 9 photos lined up are gonna look tiny on your screen, so instead we're gonna check photo by photo, always with the shot from our trusty Lumix S5 Mark II as our reference point. For our first shot, our Lumix is set to 50mm with an f2.8 aperture, which translates to roughly a 2x crop for most phones, as their main lens is usually a 24mm equivalent. The exception is Vivo though, whose standard lens is 35mm. To keep things totally fair, we're shooting all photos handheld and setting every phone's portrait mode to f2.8 or comparable blur level. So here we have our very first shot. For us, the Honor Magic 7 Pro lands in last place. That post-processing is just out of control. I mean, I look like I just saw a ghost. The OnePlus 13 comes next. It definitely has more accurate colors, easy, but the edge detection completely messed up here, and the foreground has no blur at all. Next up is the Sony Xperia 1 Mark VII, which to be fair has a very nice bokeh, but the white balance and sharpness, this ain't it, chief. The Pixel 9 Pro XL actually delivers a decent shot, but the blur effect is too soft around the edges, which is nothing we haven't seen before. The Xiaomi 15 Ultra comes in with really good subject and background separation, but that green tint is over the top. Unlike its brother, the OnePlus 13, the Oppo Find X8 Ultra does a much better job at detecting edges and applying that sweet bokeh to the foreground. However, the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra has far better colors, and that edge detection comes out quite close to our Lumix's shot. But so far, the iPhone 16 Pro Max is the only one that's really as close as our Lumix shot, with almost identical colors and superb edge detection. But there's one phone that one-ups that, and it's the absolute best for us in this first round, the Vivo X200 Ultra. Its edge detection and sharpness are just insane. I mean, we could have told you this photo came from a professional camera, and you probably would have believed it, but we don't want to bamboozle you, we're always honest here. So let's give points to all these guys ranging from 1 to 5. Honestly, photos this round weren't that bad overall. So Honor, OnePlus, and Sony get 3 points, the Pixel, Oppo, and the Galaxy get 4 points, and the iPhone and Vivo both snag 5 points. For the next round, we'll switch to an 85mm lens, which is usually 3 times zoom on the phones, and see how these bad boys do. But to really rise up to the challenge, we invited our friend Eva to see how these smartphones deal with different hair and skin tones. As before, here you have our Lumix shot with that sweet background blur. And on the other side, the undisputed worst of this round, the Pixel, with really rough edge detection and a freezing cold white balance. OnePlus definitely has better edge detection, but that's an easy feat when your reference point is the Pixel. However, the exposure is just flashbang high. For us, Sony is still in the same league as the previous 2 phones, as its colors still don't match our Lumix shot. But Honor is actually a clear step up in terms of colors and exposure. It's still far from perfect though. This time, the Galaxy really let us down. Its photos seriously lacks contrast, and the picture could really use more background blur. The iPhone shot is actually very similar to the Galaxy's, but that bokeh effect definitely looks more realistic. Oppo honestly delivers very precise edge detection, but that exposure is 1 or 2 stops too high. Which can also be said about Xiaomi. Its photo is great, but it's also a bit too bright. If you really want to talk perfection, Vivo is what immediately comes to mind for us. I mean, its edge detection is absolutely out of this world, and that background blur is super realistic. Just look at Eva's shoulder here. Those guys over at Vivo's computational photography team are definitely doing their job, which can't be said about those little startups called Google and Sony, right? Anyway, time to throw some points at these guys again. The Pixel, OnePlus, and Sony each get 2 points, Honor and the Galaxy snag 3 points, the iPhone, Oppo, and Xiaomi each earn 4 points, and Vivo once again dominates with 5 points. But now we're going all the way in using a 120mm focal length equivalent, which is approximately 5 times zoom on the phones. And of course, we're gonna be dragging Ezzy, our scriptwriter, over here and taking some snaps of him. Last place goes straight to Sony here, and we don't even have to explain why. Just look at that low-resolution hot mess, yikes! But it's not like the Pixel is leagues ahead, cause that edge detection is giving serious PlayStation 2 vibes. Honor took a page straight from OnePlus's book and decided to just straight up blind us with that over-the-top exposure. In the past 2 rounds, Xiaomi did great, but this time, even though it has fantastic detail and edge detection, that contrast is far too high. For us, OnePlus is the first one that really comes close to our Lumix shot, but unfortunately, it slipped up right here. Next up on the board is Vivo. Even though its photo looks super sharp, it also messed up in the exact same place as the OnePlus. For us, Oppo is a bit soft in texture, but it does a much better job detecting edges, totally fixing that mistake both OnePlus and Vivo made. Now, this is gonna get really interesting because the 2 best performers this round are the iPhone and the Galaxy. And we're gonna play with your brain a bit. Can you guess which one is which? You better not get it wrong. Well, photo A is the iPhone and photo B is the Galaxy. Honestly, both photos look super close to our Lumix shot, but we have to say the iPhone has a slight edge here, as the Galaxy could have blurred the background a bit more here. But we're feeling generous, so both get the same score. Alright, points time! Sony and the Pixel each get 2 points. Honor and Xiaomi snag 3 points. OnePlus, Vivo, and Oppo each earn 4 points, and the iPhone and the Galaxy get 5 points. So altogether, when it comes to studio shots, Xiaomi lands in 3rd place, Oppo and the Galaxy share 2nd, and hear me out, the iPhone and Vivo both take 1st place with exactly the same top score. Talk about a tie. As before, let's start with some 50mm shots. As you can see, this is going to be an extreme test because Honor basically said, I don't know what to blur, so I'll just blur everything. But hey, it's just the first one up, so let's see how the rest do. Sony isn't much better though, because it also just added patches of blur and called it a day. And even though the Galaxy was on the podium for our studio shots, here it only came up on top of Honor and Sony, and that's not a huge feat. OnePlus did kind of the opposite of Honor and Sony and just didn't add any blur to those flowers right in front of me. Alright, the Pixel isn't perfect either, but its depth map actually did an okay job with the flowers in the foreground, so there's that. Oppo, we have to say, delivered a photo really similar to our Lumix, and while that blur is the best so far, it's still not quite perfect. The iPhone surprised us here as it correctly separated the multiple depth levels, but that blur on the flowers looks overly artificial, which is something Xiaomi does not do badly. Yeah, the contrast is high, but that's just Xiaomi doing Xiaomi things. Which leaves the Vivo in very first place. It's definitely not a National Geographic shot, but the blur on the lavender looks very similar to our Lumix. So this just goes to show that even though these are the best phones these brands can make, there's still no real replacement for a good old-fashioned camera and a nice lens. This round was tough, so no 5 points this time round. Honor, Sony, and the Galaxy each get 1 point, OnePlus, Google, and Oppo snag 2 points, and the iPhone and Xiaomi each earn 3 points. Vivo takes the lead with 4 points. Now let's see how these contenders handle 85mm portraits. Honestly, for us, Sony just lands at the bottom here with extremely rough edge detection and heavy over-sharpening. And yup, the Pixel is next up because that blur effect is just far too artificial. We don't know what's up with the Galaxy, but even though it's better than the previous 2, once again, its edge detection falls short. And having said that, the iPhone doesn't fare much better either. Those stray hairs are just incorrectly blurred. Honor is definitely the first one that actually starts looking like our Lumix shot. But hey, we can still do better, right? Well, OnePlus actually improves on that, snagging quite a high position with a really professional looking shot. Vivo once again delivers crazy good edge detection and blur, but this time it made the shadows look just way too flat. Something Oppo actually fixes. Honestly, Oppo has been doing pretty good in this competition so far. But Xiaomi? Well, Xiaomi manages to separate every single hair from the background, plus it looks just so good with some really shiny gold tones. Honestly, this is the kind of shot you expect to get when you're shooting in portrait mode. Alright, it is points time. Sony gets 1 point, the Pixel, Galaxy, and the iPhone each get 2 points, Honor grabs 3 points, OnePlus and Vivo each earn 4 points, and Oppo and Xiaomi both get a perfect 5 points. But let's zoom even more and shoot some 120mm portrait shots under some tricky lighting. Honestly, the Pixel lands dead last here because its photo looks super artificial. Sony's photo is just acceptable, but what's up with that extreme highlight reduction on Ezzy's t-shirt? Honor, for like the millionth time, just cranks up the brightness and calls it a day. At least the edge detection is decent. Which can also be said about Xiaomi, which just like the Honor boosted the saturation way too much. For us, OnePlus looks a bit better. However, as OnePlus themselves would say, we're not settling for that. In terms of white tones and edge detection, Oppo definitely looks better, but we think we can still get a superior picture. And the iPhone proves it, capturing a far more correctly exposed photo, but those blue tones are still rather saturated. And hear us out, the Galaxy actually has the most accurate tones of all the phones, but the edge detection is not as exact as our best choice. And you know who it is already. Vivo is an absolute beast when it comes to edge detection. I mean, it even detected this single hair right here. And while colors are automatically corrected and not technically natural, just like in the last round, this is the kind of photo you just upload to your social networks without any tweaks and just let the likes flow. So as before, let's throw some points at these guys. The Pixel gets 1 point, Sony gets 2, Honor, Xiaomi, and OnePlus each get 3, Oppo, the iPhone, and the Galaxy each get 4, and Vivo once again gets 5 points. Deja vu. Which means that putting all the numbers together for the daytime section, both the iPhone and OnePlus share 3rd place, Oppo and Xiaomi share 2nd place, and Vivo, well, it's sitting at the very top of this round. Alright, before we move on to some portrait videos, let's take some low light shots in these seriously dim conditions, and trust me, things are about to get wild. And yeah, low light unfortunately doesn't really do any favors to Sony, cause I just look like a vampire. We have to say the colors and detail in Pixel's shot look nice, but that edge detection, well, you know the deal already. Honor brings better edge detection and blur, but it makes me look like I live in a pineapple under the sea. The Galaxy has visually nice but incorrect white balance, as the scene actually had a very warm light vibe. Something the OnePlus captures more accurately, however its edge detection isn't that precise. Just look at this unblurred patch right here. The iPhone does have a surprisingly great depth map, but the colors are rather cold, just like the Galaxy's. For us, Oppo gets closer to perfection as it basically fixed all that was wrong with the OnePlus, including that pesky unblurred patch. But there are two guys that did it best this time around, and that's Vivo and Xiaomi. Now, here are their photos, and it's once again time for us to mess with your brain cells. Ready for the reveal? Well, photo A is Vivo and photo B is Xiaomi. Honestly, for us, both earned 5 points, but Xiaomi does have a slight edge as it correctly blurred my hair and also my shoulder, making its photo look extremely similar to our Lumix. Points coming your way. Sony gets 1 point, the Pixel, Honor, and the Galaxy each get 2. OnePlus and the iPhone each get 3, Oppo gets 4, and as we said, Vivo and Xiaomi both get 5. But let's dial up the difficulty even more with some 85mm low light shots. We're just not gonna say anything about Sony this time, so you know we don't hurt any Sony fans' feelings. Landing in almost last is the Pixel, which just overly corrected the white balance. OnePlus, on the other hand, really slammed that contrast slider all the way to the top, but hey, at least the edge detection is solid. And actually, Honor's shot looks very similar to OnePlus's, though the colors are a tiny bit better on Honor's. The iPhone actually replicates blur super precisely, which is great, but unfortunately it falls short in everything else, keeping it from placing higher. And interestingly, the Galaxy shot looks very similar to the iPhone's, though it has better contrast levels. And talking about contrast, Xiaomi also plays with that slider, though its photo looks very crisp. And now, pay attention because this might be controversial. Honestly, we think Oppo's shot is great and the most color correct here, as everyone else, without exception, overcorrected the white balance. That said, it also lifted the shadows too much. We actually prefer Vivo's shot, and it's because of one simple reason. It's super sharp, and if you want to match the scene's real colors, it's just a 10-second fix in editing, but hey, that's just us. You're totally entitled to your own opinion. Anyway, let's assign points once again. Sony, sorry, but it gets 0 points. The Pixel and OnePlus each get 2, Honor, the iPhone, the Galaxy, and Xiaomi each snag 3 points, Oppo gets 4, and Vivo, it gets 5. Once again, you just need to see Sony's shot to know exactly why it's again in last position. Honor usually places higher, but this time it looks like it's trying to imitate Sony. And the iPhone, wow, it's like Honor's shot but with extra noise. Definitely not something we would ever post online. The Pixel, well, it's technically sharper, but it has no background blur at all. The OnePlus evidently adds blur, but its photo is far too bright. We're getting some really wild results this round, that's for sure. Xiaomi's shot is sharp, but also over bright. While technically it could be fixed in post, it has a bigger issue. There's no background blur at all. This time around, we're not big fans of Vivo's shot, as he looks straight up red, and the extreme face smoothing made some of his facial features vanish. This might sound strange, but we do like the Galaxy shot because it really mirrors the scene's ambience. However, the blur intensity and edge detection could be improved. Which leaves Oppo in first place. Yup, we know it's not perfect, but just like in the last round, you can just decrease the exposure and voila. But the real reason we chose it as the best shot is because it preserves a ton of detail, capturing Ezzy's features with precision, while also doing amazingly with edge detection. So let's give out some points and see who is the low light winner. Sony once again gets nada. Honor and the iPhone get 1 point each, the Pixel, OnePlus, and Xiaomi each get 2, Vivo grabs 3 points, and the Galaxy and Oppo both get 4. No 5 points this time. Which means after tallying all 3 rounds, Xiaomi lands in 3rd place, Oppo takes 2nd place, and Vivo emerges in 1st place by just 1 point, making it the low light portrait winner. But hey, we're not done yet. We still have some portrait videos to check out, and we're gonna hit 2 scenarios, daytime and low light. So let's get started with some daytime videos. Apparently the Pixel isn't only bad with portrait photos, but it's also pretty bad with portrait video, because even though it detects me correctly and adds blur as I approach the camera, the quality and the colors are absolutely off. And even though Xiaomi landed 3rd in still shots, here, oof, it completely misses the focus on me, delivering a really blurry video, plus it's pretty dark. Honor doesn't fare much better, as apparently that typical overexposure isn't limited to photos, plus that saturation is way too high. Sony increases or decreases blur as I approach the camera realistically, which we really liked, but that unstable exposure just renders the footage pretty unusable. OnePlus's video is definitely an improvement, offering good edge detection, but it has lots of noise, and the background blur doesn't really change realistically as I get close or far from the camera. But interestingly, Oppo correctly does this, adding more blur or bokeh when I'm closer, and while edge detection is much better than all the previous phones, it still blurs my claw clip as I turn around like food in a microwave. The Galaxy is a clear step up in quality with great colors and exposure, but the blur amount is just too low, and this is something we also saw in some portrait shots, even if we maxed out the blur level. Which leaves the iPhone as one of the strongest contenders here, which comes as no surprise since iPhones are just amazing for filming, and while its video looks really good, there's one phone which does it even better. And yup, it's Vivo. Like every other phone, it also didn't capture my flying hair correctly, but the bokeh and the bright window in the back just looks absolutely stunning, and edge detection altogether is not bad at all. Seriously, these guys at Vivo are really killing it. So let's see how these guys scored. The Pixel, Xiaomi, and Honor each get 1 point, Sony and OnePlus each get 2 points, Oppo and the Galaxy each get 3 points, the iPhone snacks 4 points, and Vivo snatches the big 5. But finally, let's check out some low-light videos to see if any of these phones can turn the tables for portrait video scores. Well, Sony goes right back to last place as everything is so blurry that we don't even know which parts have artificial blur and which don't, making the video look like it was filmed with a Sony Ericsson Walkman W800. Xiaomi unfortunately couldn't gain a better position. It lacks a ton of detail and its edge detection leaves the background behind my hair sharp, a dead giveaway this is a smartphone video. Another video lacking detail is the Pixels, which on top of it is also very dark. Yeah, the edge detection is better than Xiaomi's, and that's not something you hear often, but it's still far from getting a top spot in our ranking. In the daytime video, the Galaxy showed showed some underexposure, and unfortunately, it gets worse here. Plus, its edge detection sometimes blurs random patches in the footage. The OnePlus is definitely better exposed, but it's still missing detail, which to be fair is understandable given the really dim conditions. But we still have some more phones to check out. Honor, for example, controls that bright lamp behind me really well, and its edge detection is doing much better at detecting my stray hair. However, overall detail is just far too low, and it looks like it has a Mexico filter slapped on. And while the iPhone also does a great job taming highlights and delivering rather good edge detection, it's still not the perfect video we are looking for, even if some of these phones we've already seen have huge sensors. There are actually two videos that for us are the best, and you're looking at them right now. Honestly, for us, video B is definitely the best. It's the only video of the whole lineup which comes up sharp and that controls that crazy dynamic range very well. You want to know who it is? Well, you're more than right, because it's Vivo, which actually surprised us given how rough the previous videos turned out. So let's give out points to these guys for the last time. Sony and Xiaomi each get 1 point, the Pixel, the Galaxy, and OnePlus each get 2, Honor and the iPhone each get 3, Oppo gets 4, and Vivo snags 5. So the time has finally come. Let's check that scoreboard and crown our winners. Who is the best portrait shooter? Well, let's quickly tally up every single category and round to finally reveal our champion for portrait photography. And don't worry, portrait video results are coming right up next. So in last place with only 12 points is the Sony Xperia 1 Mark 7. Next up with 19 points we find the Google Pixel 9 Pro XL. With 22 points we have the Honor Magic 7 Pro. We keep climbing, and next with 25 points we have the OnePlus 13. In a superior position with 28 points we have the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra. And with 30 points we encounter the iPhone 16 Pro Max. And now it is podium time. In third place, we have the Xiaomi 15 Ultra, which scored a solid 32 points, which means it is time to crown our winner, though you might already have an idea which one it is. Yup, it's the Vivo X200 Ultra, dominating with a massive 40 points, leaving the Oppo Find X8 Ultra in a very close second place with 36 points. So there you have it. If you ever want to take some amazing portrait shots and you're thinking about leaving your professional camera at home, Xiaomi, Oppo, and Vivo will be your absolute best choices. But what about some nice cinematic videos worthy of a Steven Spielberg movie? Well, let's check out those final portrait video scores. The Xiaomi 15 Ultra really disappointed us for video, scoring only 2 points. The Pixel 9 Pro XL and Sony Xperia 1 Mark 7 don't do much better with only 3 points each. And the Honor Magic 7 Pro and OnePlus 13 come next with 4 points. And now it's time to reveal the pole positions. In third place with 5 points, it's the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra. It did good, but exposure improvements would be very welcomed. And now the undisputed winner of our portrait video section with a perfect 10 points is the Vivo X200 Ultra. I mean, it's truly raising the bar and showing the rest just how much you can push computational videography. In second place, we actually have a tie, both scoring 7 points. So here we have the iPhone 16 Pro Max and the Oppo Find X8 Ultra, both showing really good performance, making them solid contenders for your video needs. But hold up, do you want to see how good some of these phones are when it comes to their zoom camera? Make sure to smash this link right here for a mega zoom comparison. And before you go, pick another video to watch while you eat. Don't forget to give us a big thumbs up and hit subscribe, as we're always testing new devices to help you make the best choice. We'll see you in our next video, and until then, take care.